It's time for another tea and testimony. I will be using this TNT to introduce the next series. Today's video is something deeply personal. It's not just a testimony and not just a Bible teaching. It's a spiritual unveiling. This isn't just about what I've lived through, but what many of us have quietly endured for years without knowing it. It's about the invisible battle for your name, the first identity the world ever gave you, and the first place the enemy came to distort it. If you joined me for the last series, you know we journeyed through the book of Proverbs, a book full of insight, wisdom, correction, and instruction for daily life. But this next series will be different. It's not based on a book of the Bible, but on something foundational, something many of us have never been taught to guard or value. It's about your name, not just the sound of it, but the spiritual meaning, the assignment tied to it, and the war that has been waged over it. The name of this series is The War on Your Name. We're going to talk about spiritual identity, about divine calling, about the name that God gave you, and how the enemy has tried to distort, erase, or redefine it. We'll look at scripture, testimony, and inner healing. We'll expose the lies and reclaim what was stolen. Because if the enemy can get you to reject your name, he can get you to reject yourself. If he can get you to disconnect from the meaning and mission embedded in your name, he can delay your purpose. And if he can't take your calling, he'll make you believe it doesn't belong to you. And I know this firsthand. We will be starting that series tomorrow if you would like to join. Without farther delay, it's tea and testimony time. Let me start with my name. Carolyn, spelled C-A-R-O-L-I-N, not Caroline, not Carolyn. It may sound like those names when spoken, but I need you to hear me. The spelling, the origin, the meaning, it's different. And it matters. People often assume I've misspelled my own name. They try to correct me. They say things like, "Oh, you mean Caroline." And I used to just smile. I used to let them believe it. I let them rename me. Because deep down, I didn't know how to defend what I hadn't yet discovered. But here's the truth. Carolyn is a German masculine name. It means warrior, freeman, the one who frees man. That's not just a cute name meaning, that's a declaration from heaven. My name is a calling. My name is a key. My name is a commission. But I didn't know that growing up. I want to pause for a moment and explain something important. Most people hear my name and assume it's a version of Caroline or Carolyn, names that are traditionally feminine and rooted in English or French. They mean joyful song and little woman. But Carolyn, with the German spelling and meaning, it means free man, the one who frees man and the warrior. That's part of the assignment God has placed on my life. When people try to correct it or call me something else, Caroline or Carolyn, they don't realize they're not just changing a letter, they're shifting the entire identity attached to the name. Being a warrior is vastly different than being a little woman. No shade to anyone named Carolyn, but that is not my calling. Names carry purpose, and I now take mine seriously. So when I say my name is Carolyn, I don't just mean that's what I go by, I mean that's what I've been called by God. Now let's move on to my full name meaning. I'm not going to tell you my full legal name, for privacy reasons, but I will tell you what it means. My first name means, as I said before, free man, the one who frees man and warrior. My middle name means grace and favor, as in someone who is not just chosen, but covered. And my last name? It means promoted from warrior to commander of the army, one who has been promoted from warrior to leader in battle. I know this because one day during prayer I was telling God I don't know who I am or my purpose. God told me to look up my name. I thought, oh, that's cute. Then I continued to proceed with my day, like I didn't just receive something big. A few days later, God reminded me of the conversation, but this time, he had instructions. I wrote down my name and meaning, but the way God had me write it was, the one who frees man, the warrior of grace. Then he had me look up my older sister and brother's names. This is where it gets interesting. My older sister's name means the warrior of wrath. My brother's name means the warrior of judgment. And my name means the warrior of grace. My sister passed before my brother and I were born, but we were all born with the same last name. And that last name literally means war or battle. When I was 2 years old, my brother and my last name was changed. Our new last name meant one promoted from warrior to captain of the army. This is when God informed me that my mother had given birth to the warriors of wrath, judgment, and grace. And when I sat with that, I realized the weight of it. My mother didn't just give us names, she gave birth to weapons formed for a generation, 3 children, each marked by a different aspect of God's justice. One carrying wrath, one carrying judgment, and one carrying grace. And even though she may not have known it at the time, my mother birthed a prophetic order. Wrath comes first, to confront the wicked. Judgment follows, to divide what is righteous from what is not. And then grace comes to restore, to redeem, and to lead into the future. That is not a coincidence. That is divine strategy. And somehow, God entrusted her to carry all 3. For a long time, I wrestled with being the youngest, with being the one born after so much had already happened. But now I see, it wasn't because I was late, it's because grace always comes last. Grace is the covering. Grace is the banner. Grace is the weapon that wins the war. And when I walk in the truth of my name, I walk in what was always meant to be the final word in our family's legacy. Restoration through grace. That's what my name carries. Throughout my life, the enemy has attacked my identity through my name. I'm just going to share a few. First, my name is very rare. MyNameStats.com estimates 1,045 counted in SSA records across the last century. Nameberry, 2025, notes around 1,255 babies have been named Carolyn in total, dating back to the early 20th century. So many people want to group me with Caroline and Carolyn. I always thought this was harmless. It was close enough. But I was wrong. That is a vast difference between the meanings. If I continued to be a little woman, then I never would have taken my place in a family of warriors. I would have continued to shrink inside myself and not stand up and lead. Second, my father, who was clinically diagnosed with narcissism and bipolar disorder, for whatever reason refused to spell my name correctly. Whenever I would try to correct him, he would yell, "I am spelling your name correctly. It's not my fault your mother refused to spell your name correctly." So I learned from him that there was something wrong with my name. Something wrong with me. This is when I started letting people call me by a name that was not mine. A name that meant little woman, not liberator. This was a very important distinction, since I was actually shrinking myself from being a warrior to a little woman. Once again, nothing wrong with little woman. However, if you know me, you know there is nothing little about this woman. My father was one of the main people the enemy used to make me insecure in my home. But he used people outside of the home as well. I attended a private preschool. My mother was the school accountant. The owner of the school had a daughter, and her name was Caroline. She was in my classroom. Everyone assumed my name was pronounced Caroline, since it was only lacking the letter E at the end. They assumed we had the same name. I tried to explain my name was pronounced differently, but I am sure you can imagine how well that went for a 4-year-old child in a room that they didn't feel safe in. Caroline was used to getting what she wanted, and one day she decided that she didn't want anyone calling me by that name anymore, not the kids, not even the teachers, and they listened. She would throw fits, loud, violent, entitled screaming fits, anytime someone tried to call me by our shared name, which was not actually my name. So everyone just stopped. She got the name. And I lost it, even though it wasn't actually even my name. I wasn't good enough to be called by the name my mother gave me, and I wasn't good enough to be called by the name my father told me I should have. Not only was I not good enough for my name, but I was also told that I was the wrong color to have my name. Yes, this child informed me that a black person was not allowed to have her name. As life went on, it got to the point where, when people would ask me what I preferred to go by, I would say, "I don't care. Call me what's easiest for you." But I did care. I just didn't know how to fight for what was mine. I didn't know how to stand in the truth of who I was called to be. But now I do. And I want you to know that your name matters too. It is not random. It is not meaningless. It is not a mistake. It may have been misused or mocked. It may have been shortened or silenced. But that doesn't change the name God gave you, the one tied to your purpose. In this series, we're going to look at what happens when names are stolen, when they're twisted, when they're forgotten, and more importantly, we're going to talk about how to take them back. Because the war on your name is not about pronunciation, it's about destiny. So I want to invite you to stay with me. Lean in, this is just the beginning. The war on your name may have started long before you could speak, but the victory over it begins today. You are not who the world has called you. You are not what the enemy labeled you. You are who God says you are, and He never got it wrong. Let's reclaim it together. And here's how we start. Before the next video, I want to invite you to do something that might seem small, but could change everything. Look up the meaning of your name, not just your first name, but all of them if you can. Your middle name, your last name. Ask God to show you what He's been saying about you all along, and then drop the meaning of your name in the comments. Don't worry about sharing your actual name. This is about what your name carries. Tell me, did you used to love your name or hate it? Did you think it was plain, strange, too unique, or too common? And how do you feel now that you know what it means? You might be surprised by what you discover. You might find yourself in tears. Or you might feel strength rising up in you for the first time in a long time. Either way, you're reclaiming something. And if your name has ever changed, whether through marriage, adoption, legal choice, or anything else, I want you to look up both the name you were born with and the name you carry now. Ask God to show you the story in the shift. What was He protecting? What was He promoting? What was He restoring? There's often revelation in the before and after. Your name matters. All of it. Let's discover what God has been saying through it from the beginning. Let's start this journey with revelation. Let's start by seeing ourselves the way heaven always has.